Hey guys, it's Sam for Digital Meat, and in this Cinema 4D tutorial, we're back with RealFlow again, RealFlow for C4D. I want to show you several different ways that you can render RealFlow particles inside Cinema 4D. So let's just get going. You'll recognise this scene from the last couple of tutorials I got. So I've got a collider object with a collider tag and a volume tag on it. If you don't see these, you're probably not using RealFlow 2.0, you're probably on 1.0. And I've got a floor with the same tags on them as well. So we're going to need our RealFlow setup. So I'm just going to create a circle emitter to keep it nice and simple. It creates our scene tree. Our emitter needs to be scaled, so I'm going to go to object and just make this 25 by 25. That should do us. And I'm also going to go into the scene and go down to the solver, use GPU, that'll speed things up for us. And in the fluid I'm going to go to display, and I'm going to crank up the size of the particles to 5. Just helps you guys see them a little bit better. And now I'm going to drag my emitter, so I don't know, it's pointing like this. So now if we hit play, we should get something like this. And as you can see, it's not colliding with our floor or our object. And that's because normally, you know, you set up your colliders and you may have a scene tree already in your scene. So if you actually look at this collider tag, you'll see that there's no RealFlow scene or link in there. And the same for this one. So if we select both of them, we can lob our scene in this RealFlow scene, and in our links we can link our fluid. Boom. So if we rewind and press play now, yep, all is good, but you'll notice the particles are splooshing up into the air. You may want that, I don't. So we're going to need some gravity. So let's get some gravity in our scene. So we go to RealFlow, Demons, Gravity. So that's in the scene now. And I don't need to change any settings on that. And there we go. We've got something going on. But you can see there's some particles escaping out the bottom there. Let's go into our side view. Yeah, there's a few shooting through. Yeah. So what we want to do is go up to our scene, go to the solver, and we've got this auto params here. So I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to double our min steps to 4, and I'm going to double our max steps to 4 as well. And let's see if that fixed our problem. Yep, looks like it. So that was easy enough. Let's go back into our other view. And let's make our resolution a little bit bigger for these particles as well, because there's not too many of them. So let's go to our fluid. Let's go to the fluid tab, and our resolution set to 2. Let's crank this up to 10 and see what we get. Yeah, not bad. Let's crank it up even more. Let's go 40. That's a bit better. I think we can do better than that though. Let's say 50. Or even, let's go 60. Let's add another 20 on top there. And yeah, not bad, but still, I think we can go better. Let's go 100. Let's just let's stop messing around and just get it there. Yep, that'll do us. So we've got 100 on the resolution now. And now we've got our particle sort of system going. I might as well cache that. So let's go up to scene. Let's go to cache. I'm just going to rewind this to the beginning. And have we got a cache there already? No. So let's cache simulation. We don't need to worry about meshes because we've got no meshes in our scene. So there we go. And that we should be able to scrub back and forth now. Yep, there we go. Nice and quick. So there we go. We've got it all set up. Now, how would we go about rendering this? Well, the easiest and the first option we've got here is to use the hardware renderer. And you may have noticed some of my thumbnails on previous videos. That's what I've been doing. So I probably want to go to this display and this display icon, because you can see it on the scene, I think, when you're not clicked on it. Yeah, there you go. You can see this big sort of like next limit thing. So I'm going to take that off. And now it doesn't display the icon. And then you can set up anything else you want in the scene, like your, you know, SSAO, you know, screen space ambient occlusion, reflections, shadows, any of that. And then you have to change this to hardware, OpenGL, and then any of those things that you want here, basically you switch on. So it's at 1920 by 1080, and I can render that out as a PSD. So let's just give that a quick render, and it's pretty quick. And there you go. You got your particles there. So that's one way of doing it, but it's not the best way because, well, first of all, you're going to get this info in the corner. I can actually turn that off, but the particles are never going to be quite the same because it's all sort of like dependent on. They don't look as big as they do in the viewport, let's say, and it's probably because of the resolution of this doesn't match the resolution of the viewport. And, you know, these don't cast shadows. You do get some ambient occlusion if you've got it turned on, I think. But, you know, all in all, it's not the greatest. So that's one way of doing it. But like I said, it's not the greatest. But there are several other ways of doing this. So let's have a look at them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sphere. And obviously that's too big, so I'm just going to shrink it down to maybe the 2. And I'm going to take this sphere and I'm going to drop it under my fluid. And if I go to my fluid and go to the particles tab, it will give you some options here. So I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to hit play straight away. Oh, we've got a load of balls coming out there. But you can see that it's bogging down the viewport, which is no good. So we've got this checkbox here called render only. So I'm just going to check that. It will turn off the balls in the viewport. So it's just my particles, and it'll only be when I render. So let's set that up. Let's go back to my physical renderer. Anti-aliasing, I've got it set to animation because it is an animation, or it will be if I render out all the frames. And I've also got motion blur turned on and a few other bits. So there you have it. So we're back on physical now. So I'm just going to drop this red material on my sphere. And I'm hoping that when we render, yeah, there we go. We've got a load of red balls there. Now I think that I'm probably going to duplicate this and whack it there and take off this red material. And I'm going to copy this and I'm going to make this color a little bit different. I'm going to go for the good old Digital Meat logo color. There we go. And I'm going to whack that on our sphere here. Oh, we've got something going on. So let's just play this a few more times. In fact, I'm going to change the diameter of these spheres as well. And there's something else you can do to speed this up before I go on. If I go to the fluid, the particles in the particles tab in the fluid, and take off render only. Obviously you're going to see them in the viewport. Oh, that's going to hurt. But if we go to both of our spheres, we've got this segment set in. So if I bring this all the way down to 3, which is basically nothing, you're going to see a lot less polys on the screen. And we've got this render perfect checkbox. So even though the segments are set to 3, which is literally... Let's get us, you know, look at that. They look like little diamonds or something. So that's not ideal, really. But they'll render perfect still. So if I render, they still look like balls. So that's perfect. So I'm going to go back to my fluid and say render only. And try that again. So we do this. Render that again. And there we go. Again, I think they could do with being a little bit smaller still. So, oh, I didn't actually reduce their size. So they're 2 centimeters at the moment. I'm going to say 1.5. Maybe a little bit smaller. It's probably because the resolution's so high. So let's say 1. And go back. Render again. Yeah, there we go. And the beauty of doing it this way is that all of these objects actually cast shadows, and you're rendering with a ray trace engine. So, you know, you're going to get a lot more sort of more realistic results, if you like. So that's another way of doing this. Okay, so let's get rid of these spheres then. We don't need them anymore. And we're going to look at the third way to do this. And this way is pretty decent, to be honest. So we're going to do it using thinking particles. If we go to our fluid and then go to the particles tab again, we've got this create thinking particles. So just check that on. And I don't know if you can see that on screen. You should be able to do, but there's a lot of white crosses on the screen. So these particles that are displayed, let's turn those off. These blue spots here, they're not really objects. They're just a representation of they're kind of like nulls. They represent a position in space. And when you create thinking particles, it will create a thinking particle group, and they'll be distributed across the RealFlow particles. So they just sort of match their position. That doesn't do anything in itself. You know, if you try and render that, you're going to see nothing, absolutely nothing. So what we need to do is actually hook these thinking particles up with something. So let's get to frame 87. Okay, so what we need to do first is go to simulate. We need to go to particles, thinking particles even, and select this particle geometry. That'll create this object up here. And in this object it's saying particle group. So we need something to drop in there. So if we open up simulate again and go to thinking particles and the thinking particles settings, we can see that we've got these particle groups here. And if you drop down, you've got this fluid TPO, and I'm going to grab that and dump it in this group here. So stage 1 complete. Still nothing when we render. Okay, so now what we do is we go to our particle geometry object, right click, and we go down to hair, and we want to select this render tag. There we go. And then what we want to do is we want to create a hair material. So let's go down to our material section, create shader and hair material. So let's open this up and let's have a look at what we can do. So with the color, I'm gonna take this right off, and I'm just going to color this red so we can see that it's actually working. That's pink. There we go. Very stark. We've got a specular, so you can leave that on if you want. You can turn it off. You can do what you like. And in the thickness, you'll see that the root and the tip are different amounts. So I'm actually just going to make the tip match the root. In fact, I might double that. There we go, so there's 2 centimeters on each, and then we apply our hair material to our particle geometry. And now let's give it a render. And lo and behold, we have objects. Now if you're wondering what the pink is in there, it's probably because of the angle of the particle. So it's probably it's specular. So you can actually what we got, strength 60%, so let's crank it down to maybe 20 so it's not so much, and see if that made a difference. And you can see that pink's got a lot darker now. Yeah, so you can see that we can actually render those points in the physical renderer using the thinking particle, the particle geometry object with a hair material. So it's all good. So let's just fill this up a little bit more. See what we get. There we go, and there's we get. It looks like there's shadowing there. I'm going to get rid of the gravity for a moment and just see what kind of result we get, just for shits and giggles. Oh, it's because I cached the animation, so there will be no difference really. But yeah, you can see that when we do that, we're getting a great little result there. So as always, guys, check out the Digital Meat website, digitalmeat.uk. You can sign up to be a member there for free. Check out my club on Cinema 4D Cafe as well. You can follow me on social media. There'll be links in the description. And if you want to support me on Patreon, there'll be a link on screen at the end. Bye!